Hello and welcome back to EE Times live coverage of the 2011 DesignCon from Santa Clara Convention Center in, where else? Santa Clara, California, where the weather is sunny and clear. There's no snow in the forecast, and so if you're stuck in O'Hare or Logan or Dulles or any place like that, this I'm sure is being co-streamed by CNN because it's a very, very important piece of content for them. A lot of people don't believe that.
Me included.
But the next segment is emblematic of the importance of this content. And with us now for another segment is Brian Bailey, verification consultant, expert on some of the most complex aspects of complex design today. He runs tutorials here at DesignCon, at other events too numerous to mention here. And it was almost as if on cue the night before DesignCon started that Intel reported a big bug with its with one of its processors, the Cougar point, I think, subsystem, part of one of the South Bridge, North Bridge. I don't have that story right in front of me, but it pointed up the verification problem, the challenge. That's an enormously complex chip. Talk to that. What does it mean, and how is the EDA industry in particular trying to deal with this challenge?
Well, let's think about what that problem was to start off with. Intel could perhaps claim not a problem with their chip. There is, they verified their chip and it was working exactly to their expectations. The problem, as I understand it, was that it was associated with one of the interfaces to things that they connected to on the outside world. And they had a disagreement about that interface.
A SATA bus, I think, right?
A bus,
yeah.
Correct. And so they designed and verified their system to work one way, and other people designed and built and verified their system to work a different way. So you had a compatibility issue. And I think that this really starts to bring up the whole notion of, a system is not, as we used to think about it, a little block or a little chip. We have to start thinking more and more about the entire context of what it is we're building and verifying. And interfaces are always one of those interesting enigmas. It's of who owns the interface. It's very easy to, when you partition a system, to say, okay, that's your block and that's your block and you're responsible for them. But what happens to the interface? People don't like taking responsibility for interfaces. And even when responsibility for that as a bus perhaps is given out, it's still, you've got the disconnect between the verification of the bus as a concept and the verification of the implementation of the buses, and then the compatibility of everybody working together. So, I think what Intel has seen here is the wake-up call to the industry that it's no longer enough to think about just what you create. You've got to think about the context in which you operate as well.
So who generally does get saddled with the bus and dealing with that, or is it just sort of wildly different from company to company?
In part, it's one of the enigmas of the way that our industry has evolved. We think of verification as being a bottom-up process. We use simulation for the RTL blocks. Once implemented, we verify that those blocks work together. And then we try and integrate a few of those blocks together, and then we verify at the subsystem level. Well, at that point, you're now beginning to sort of verify the partitioning that was made of those blocks into the individual blocks that was implemented and the interfaces between them. So then you verify the subsystem, and then you integrate some subsystems together, and you verify that. Again, you start verifying a few more of those interfaces and partitioning choices. And you keep doing that until you've assembled what you think of as the system. And, interestingly enough, that's actually the first point at which you actually verify that your spec was correct. You actually validate the spec at that point. The last thing you do in the process is find out if the spec was correct.
Right.
So we've created this bottom-up, verification process, and also we're leaving some of the bigger problems until later on in the process. So what Intel perhaps made the mistake in doing here is they defined their system context, and they got to the end, they got to the top of their verification chain and they stopped, rather than thinking, well, there's a bigger context of the system, even bigger than that we forgot to verify that we worked in that context. And so, you know, the interfaces around that just didn't properly get verified.
Amazing, and thankfully there are guys like you, many of them out there, trying to deal with these challenges. What have you seen? I know we're really effectively only on day 2 of DesignCon. What are you seeing out there? Because we haven't been outside of this room for 12 hours. So what's going on out there?
Yeah. It's always a little difficult to tell from the first day, because the first day is the tutorials. And so you don't quite see the full swing of the conference going. And unfortunately, I've been doing other things as well. This morning, I haven't really managed to get into any of the papers yet. But, you know, from everything I hear, the numbers are up. You know, there seems to be a lot of people milling around, and I did hear, I had one of the afternoon tutorials, and they had found for some of the morning ones, the rooms weren't big enough.
Oh,
and they had to move people into bigger rooms, and they were asking us if we thought there was going to be a need for us to move into a bigger room. And so, you know, I think that attests to the fact that, you know, the early numbers were showing promise, and it was living up to the fact that, you know, the attendance is higher than they had anticipated. Good news.
Absolutely good news, because the challenges never cease.
Right.
And I assume that you're going to DAC?
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't miss DAC.
You wouldn't miss the Cadence Denali party?
Well, I have to admit I haven't been to it for a few years. I'm getting a little old for that kind of partying.
You're a very, very wise man. So hopefully we'll be doing similar programming at Design Automation Conference. Definitely want to bring you back, and we'll compare and contrast the intervening 5 months or 6 months.
Sounds good.
So have a good DesignCon. Thanks for being our guinea pig on E-Times Live coverage from DesignCon 2011. And we may be back in about a half an hour with our last live segment. So please come back if you want that. If not, you got better things to do. Lunch calls, your stomach is gurgling on the Pacific Coast. Don't worry, this will be archived very soon, and you can send it to your friends, to your parents, because
to CNN.
They want to be impressed that you're in an industry that not many people really understand, but it is definitely vital to the future of the economies of the world. Wow, that was a mouthful. So again, check back about 12:45 Pacific. We should have one last segment, and thanks for watching.